Yeah. Yes, I've got it. Yeah, I'm sitting here looking right at it. Yes, it's exactly what we discussed. So you'll be here at 5 o'clock to pick it up? Okay. All right, 5 o'clock.
Look at it. There it is. More money than I've ever seen before or will ever see again. For just a few hours today, it's mine. Well, I can pretend anyway. How the hell did I get in this mess? I've made some terrible decisions, but I never thought it would come to anything like this. I guess this is just a sum total of a lot of bad decisions that have been building up over the past year. Funny how life has a way of catching up with you. No matter how much you may think you're on top of things, you can think you've got it all under control, that you figured out all the angles, but eventually, it all has a way of catching up with you. And then you find yourself face to face with the consequences of all your decisions, good or bad. No matter how hard you run, no matter how fast you think you are, you can't outrun yourself. In just a few hours, my life is going to change forever. My life as I've known it up to this point will be behind me. Jerry Dolan will cease to exist. That's me, Jerry Dolan, 38, married to Anne, no kids, shipping manager at the Hillcrest Beverage Company in Baltimore, Maryland. I guess I should tell you a little bit about how it all came down to this. I'll go way back to the beginning, how I got hooked on gambling, and how it led to my downfall. After all, I've got a few hours and time to kill. I used to love driving through horse country. My parents used to bring me out here when I was a kid. This is where all the big horse farms were, thoroughbreds, born and bred to be champions in the racing world. The Vanderbilts even had a horse farm out here at one time. Lovely, isn't it? The open sky, the rolling hills. Ever since I was a kid, I just thought the drive through this farmland was beautiful. Even all these years later, I'd still find myself driving out here whenever I just needed to get away from the noise and clear my head. Always took me back to those childhood drives, sitting in the back seat of my parents' car, just taking it all in. Sometimes we'd stop off at Belmont Farm and watch the horses grazing. They'd come over to the fence, and seeing them up close like that was always a majestic experience. I always found the horse to be such a strong, noble animal, beautiful even. There's something about their eyes, the connection you feel with them. I even got to ride one a couple of times, not around here, but a neighbor had a horse that she let me and my dad ride around the meadow near our house once or twice. I always remember the trepidation I felt, knowing that at any moment the horse could have buckled or bolted. But you trust the horse, and the horse trusts you. Yes, to me the horse was always a beautiful, noble animal. Little did I know they would eventually prove to be my undoing. My visits to the racetrack started simply as a way to reconnect with my love of horses. It was just a couple years ago I came here more or less on a whim during the state fair. It was absolutely invigorating sitting in the stands, watching the race, the horses thundering around the track and toward the finish line. This was an aspect of the equestrian world I had never experienced before. Watching the horses racing each other was the oddest thing. It was as if they really knew they were competing with each other. I sensed a real competitive spirit between them, but also a deep respect. There was just something in the way they moved, something in the way they carried themselves around that track that made a real impression on me. I was totally enthralled by the energy. There's just something about that energy, the cheering crowd, the thundering hooves, that sweeps you up in the excitement. It started out naturally enough, cheering on whatever horse happened to be at the front of the pack. Of course, I couldn't help getting into the spirit of the competition and picking favorites. After a while, you start to wonder, what would happen if my horse won? That's when I discovered the thrill of betting. Sure, you could just sit in the stands and root for your favorite horse to win, but there's something about having money riding on it that makes it real somehow. I don't know what made me start, but I guess I figured that if I could enjoy the races and make a little money at the same time, what's wrong with that? Of course, all it takes is 1 or 2 wins, and suddenly you're hooked. The first time your horse is the first to cross the finish line, and you know you've got some cash coming your way, you no longer just feel like your horse has won. Now you have won, too. Before long, that's how you start seeing it. It's not the horse that wins or loses, it's you. Sometimes you can get really mad. It didn't happen right away, but after a while, if my horse lost, I felt angry, almost betrayed, as if the horse had somehow let me down. It's crazy, I know, but that's just how this competitiveness takes hold of you. Pretty soon, it's all you can think about. Heading out of work early in the afternoon or canceling plans with your wife on the weekend, you do what you can to get to the track, put your money down, and hopefully walk away a winner. That's when the problems began. I started putting down more and more money, taking riskier and riskier bets. The highs were as high as ever, but the lows took me to new depths. Eventually, the compulsion to gamble overtook me completely, and I found myself betting on anything I could: online gaming, sporting events, and even playing the slots at the casino. That's when things really began to suffer at work, too, because I would stop off at the casino in the morning and could hardly bring myself to leave sometimes to get to the office. I know the boss noticed. I told myself he didn't, but he did. I know Anne, my wife, she noticed too. And that's when everything fell apart. I lost more and more money and had to tap into our savings just to cover my losses. So you might be wondering how all of this got so out of control. Well, that's where it gets complicated. What you have to understand is that, in this state anyway, off-track betting is entirely legal. It's regulated to make sure there's no funny business and that everything stays above board. But there's also all sorts of shadow betting going on illegally under the radar online, if you know where to look for it. And that's where you make the big money. You see, because this kind of illegal online betting is unregulated, anything goes. The betting goes sky high, and Things aren't always done entirely by the books, if you know what I mean. And because of that, and because the stakes are so high, sometimes you get a guy who's got a surefire tip, one that can't lose. The racetrack tout. But rather than walking around the track in a pinstripe suit and fedora giving tips like you've seen in those old movies, today's tout operates online, under the cover of shadows on the dark web. Oh, the tout's got his sources, of course. He doesn't make this stuff up out of thin air. But you have to be careful with some of these guys, because they have their own reasons for giving tips. Maybe they're trying to spin the odds in someone's favor. Maybe they have an arrangement with someone and stand to take home a big portion of the winnings. You gotta watch out for those guys. But any tout worth his salt knows better than to play these kind of games, at least with any regulars. One bad tip and your reputation is sunk. You betray your sources and you're finished. But bad tips can still happen. So when you get a tip, you tend to take it. That's where I made my mistake. I got taken in big time by a couple of guys. Said they had a tip that couldn't lose. Encouraged me to put down all the money I had. So I did. And I lost. A lot. This was the big one. There was no way I could begin to pay it back with what I had. I knew I had to beg, borrow, or steal to settle the debt. And since the first two options were definitely out, I only had one choice. I was desperate. That's when you always make the biggest mistakes of your life, when you're desperate. Nothing good ever comes out of desperation. Not really. Sure, it can be a great motivator when you have the proverbial gun to your head, but you can never really think clearly under those circumstances. And when things get as bad as they did for me, anything you do is purely reactive. I needed money, so I looked around to see where I could find the largest amount of money possible. That was from my employer's funds. As a shipping manager, you have access to certain accounts to cover emergency expenses. Well, what was this if not an emergency expense? So I dug into the fund. I'm not proud to say it, but I did. Again, I wasn't thinking clearly. In my desperate state, it was the only thing that made sense to me. You have to understand, the guys I owed this money to would not have accepted any excuse. I was already in bad with them after struggling to pay off a few other bad bets I'd made, so they were in no mood to hear anything other than the sound of cash being counted and handed over to them. So that's how I ended up here, sitting in my office on a Saturday afternoon, waiting to make a payoff to a couple of guys I've never even met before. I've got a few hours till 5 o'clock when they're supposed to show up, so all I can do is sit and wait. After that, who knows? I can't go home again. That much is sure. Home. Funny how you can take something so important for granted like that. Think about it. You wake up there every morning, come back to it every evening. It just sort of exists as this place where you always know you belong, that you always come back to. But you don't even think about it until you're away from it. I came into the office this morning just the way I would on any weekday when I'm coming into work. But this time it's different, because I know I can't go back. I will never forget the last time I saw the place this morning. The last time I saw Anne. The last time we stood in the kitchen, sat at the breakfast table. Funny, I left without even saying goodbye. I wonder, did she have the slightest idea that I wouldn't be coming home tonight? Or ever again? Good morning.
Morning.
How'd you sleep last night?
Fine.
Good, good.
How about you?
Oh, fine. Just air is getting really dry. It's really thick up there. I think we might need to break out that humidifier again.
All right, well, we have to clean it because it's been a year.
Yeah. Well, if it helps us sleep better.
day out there.
Yeah.
Crisp weather.
We should go for a walk.
Well, actually, I might be heading into the office for a bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit this morning.
What do you have to do?
I want to submit some more orders for shipping next week. We're just so backed up, you know?
Well, how long are you going to be there?
I'd say no later than probably mid-afternoon, you know, at the latest.
All right, well, when you come back, we should probably tackle that bathroom downstairs.
Okay.
Sitting there at the breakfast table, I could hardly bring myself to look at her. In many ways, it was like any other morning. We didn't always have much to say to each other these days, but this morning, the silence was deafening. I had a terrible knot in my stomach and a tightness in my throat that made the coffee taste sour. I felt like I wanted to tell her everything, even though I knew I couldn't. After so many self-destructive decisions that had wrecked our life together, I knew I was taking the cowardly way out, running away from it all rather than facing the problems I had made head on, and I guess I was ashamed of that. I found it almost impossible to get up and leave, taking my time with the coffee and stretching out every second till it felt like hours going by. Maybe, I thought, if I didn't leave, if I didn't walk out that door, somehow everything would correct itself and work out somehow. It felt like an eternity sitting there, wanting to cry out for help, but too scared to do so. Maybe, I thought, if I just told Anne everything right here and now, just told her the truth, there would be a chance to salvage everything. Our marriage, our life we'd built together. But I knew better, of course. I was in deep this time, in way over my head, and there was only one way out. I'll never forgive myself for hurting Anne this way. The truth is, after 9 years of marriage, we had grown apart a bit, but it was the financial problems brought on by my gambling that really drove the wedge between us. Anne was never anything less than patient and understanding, but the money problems definitely took their toll. The final straw was when she found out I had emptied our savings account at the credit union to pay off some debts. It was a real desperation move. That was money we had set aside for our future together. By gambling in a way like that, it was hard for her not to take it as a comment on where I saw our future together going. But all of that was nothing compared to cheating on her. I met her here at work. She's one of our vendors. Saw her a couple of times a week when she'd come in to make deliveries. Anne and I had just had a terrible fight the night before. The next day I met Sarah, when she came into our warehouse for the first time. We started chatting a bit each week when she'd come in, And before long, we hit it off. One thing led to another, and we started seeing each other outside of work. Hey, I thought I told you not to call me here. Do you know how late it is? Yeah, I know we were supposed to get together tonight, but I couldn't get away. Listen, I really can't talk right now. Can I please call you from the office tomorrow? We can talk then. Okay. Okay. No, I haven't told her yet. I haven't even brought it up. I'm not having second thoughts. I have to think about what I'm going to tell her. Right. Yeah, listen, I really can't talk right now. Please, I'll call you from the office tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. Okay, you too. Right, bye.
Who was that?
What?
Who was that?
Oh, it's just something about work.
At this hour?
Yeah, it's just more urgent stuff that can't wait, I guess.
What's going on?
What do you mean?
I mean, you're acting really weird. You're taking these calls at all hours. You're going out, at weird times. Are you cheating on me?
What?
I mean, what else could it be?
I can't even believe you'd ask me that.
So,
I can't believe you'd ask me that. That's why.
you're not going to deny it?
Of course, there's nothing to deny. I can't. I don't even know what to say to this.
You don't think I have a reason to be suspicious? Something's going on?
If you mean the phone call, I've got to take care. Things I've got to take care of. What do you want me to say?
I want you to say, of course not, but
No, of course not. I just can't, I'm just floored that you would even ask me that. With all this, I'm just trying to take care of things, just trying to keep this house running smoothly for us. I know things have been taking up more and more of my time at work lately, but I just can't believe you'd ask me that.
I don't know why you're so surprised. It's been very strange behavior.
Listen, I don't know what you're talking about. Can we just talk about this tomorrow, please? Will you just please get to sleep? It's after midnight now.
Fine, whatever.
The worst part about getting yourself in a mess like this is all the people in your life that you're hurting along the way. And yet you do it anyway. That's the kicker. You know what you're doing is wrong. You know what you're doing is hurting the people you care about and who care about you, but you're willing to throw it all away for that momentary rush of fulfilling that compulsion. My parents have stopped talking to me, cut me off completely. I can't say I blame them after everything I put them through. The money problems drove me to some pretty desperate measures, and I violated their trust, stealing money from them on more than one occasion when I'd come to visit. My mother caught me taking some money out of her purse one day when I was there. It was humiliating. I felt awful. Last time I saw them, I even had the nerve to ask my mother for money to help me cover my debts. She wouldn't give me money, since she didn't want to enable my gambling habit, but she told me I had her full support if I ever wanted to seek help. Of course, I refused, blew it off, and stormed out. Looking back, I can't believe how I acted. But even now, today, would I still take her up on her offer? That's the thing. I know what I should have done, still know what I should do. But would I do it? Probably not. Not as long as there was one more bet to be placed. The way I hurt my parents through this has been one of the hardest parts of it all for me. The threats, the danger I put myself in, doesn't even begin to compare to the awful feeling of hurting the people who you love and who love you. I've let a lot of people down, that's for sure. Even my boss, Jim Halloran. Jim's a great guy, been extremely patient with me through all of this. I know that he could tell something was wrong. Just a couple weeks ago, we sat in this very room and had my annual performance review. Said our numbers were down and it was beginning to have a real impact on the company's revenue. I gave him some excuses about business being slow, bars doing less business because of the lockdowns last year, or people staying home more, or whatever. But that's all they were, excuses. He should have fired me on the spot, but he didn't. He even expressed real concern about why I'd been showing up later and later to work. Didn't even mention the days I didn't come in at all. I think he knew I was in big trouble and wanted to do everything he could to help me, rather than add to my problems. But did I listen? Did I take him up on his offer to come talk to him about anything that might be wrong? Of course not. The very next morning I went out and hit the casino again on my way into work. Didn't even show up here till close to noon. And then I wonder why I don't get a raise this year. Jim Halloran was way too patient with me. He did everything he could to help, and I just spit in his face. What a way to treat the people who are looking out for you. During that performance review, I told him I needed more money. I told him whatever I thought he needed to hear to convince him to give me a raise. I don't blame him for saying no. I wonder what he'll say when he comes in Monday morning and discovers the money missing. Even now, I feel terrible about doing this to him. But what choice do I have, really? That's the thing. It's either him or me. I can just imagine the conversation he's going to have with the police when he calls them in here. They'll probably ask him what kind of employee I was. Did he ever have any trouble with me before? Did he suspect me to be capable of stealing? And Jim will probably tell them that he could never have imagined that I'd do a thing like this. He'll remember our conversation about how badly I needed the extra money, and think about the problems he had with me coming in late so often. I'm sure it won't take him long at all to put two and two together, that Jerry Dolan, his employee of 7 years, was nothing more than a thief, and I will have destroyed for good any trust that may have been left between us. Yes, hurting the people around you, the people who have put their trust in you, the people who care about you, that's the part that makes you feel lower than low. I used to come down here to the waterfront all the time on my lunch break. I'd grab some seafood from the market and sit out here on the pier watching the ships come in and out of the harbor. I always wondered where they were coming from or going to, imagining them coming in off the ocean and up the Chesapeake Bay, thinking about all the far-off places they'd go with their cargo and all the things they'd bring back with them here to Baltimore. When you're stuck in an office all day, your mind can't help but wander to thoughts of getting away to a new place, of setting out on the sea and seeing where the currents take you. Maybe that's how I got the idea to leave the country. Not by ship, of course, no time for that, but to get away from it all, to go someplace far away, to leave behind all the problems. After all, come Monday morning, I'm going to be a wanted man. If I stay here, I'll be confined to a prison cell before long, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life locked up. So now is the time. I'll finally take that trip I've been dreaming about. Sarah, this is Jerry. I have 2 tickets on a flight leaving for Mexico at 8 o'clock tonight. I'm here at the office now. I'm making the payoff and then getting the hell out of the country before it's too late. I want you to come with me. Call me as soon as you get this. There's a funny thing. When you're in trouble, I mean really in serious trouble, there's nothing more you crave than the idea of someone who can comfort you. Even if you've pushed away all the people in the world who actually care about you, you still find yourself wanting the company of someone you can turn to. It's a feeling that comes over you when you feel like you're all alone in the world and there's no one left around you. It's natural, though, to be scared when you're faced with the gaping chasm of the unfamiliar. Here I am, in more trouble than I could have ever imagined my whole life, about to leave the country for good, and cutting loose everyone in my life. That's why I hoped Sarah would join me. Did I really believe she would go with me? Give up her life, her job, her friends, family, everything and everyone she knows, to run away with someone she only just met a few weeks ago? Fear does strange things to people. Making a decision out of fear and panic never leads to anything good. The decisions I've made over the past couple months have definitely been evidence of that. The truth is, I've never been so scared in my life. I've had to do things that I never dreamed of doing before. But once you're up against the wall and feel like you have no other choice, you'll do anything to keep going. I keep thinking of the danger I put Anne in. That's the worst part of it. It's one thing to engage in that high-risk behavior yourself, but another thing entirely to put someone you love in harm's way like that. I really began to worry once the threats began and the heat cranked up.
Tired of hoping the right. Slash free. Instead of waiting for great candidates to find you, ZipRecruiter finds qualified candidates for you and
What is it? Is everything okay?
Yes. Go back inside. Hey,
Hi.
how was your day?
Oh, peachy. You?
Just exhausting, but otherwise fine. This looks good.
Yeah. Roasted veggies and sausage. Your favorite.
That was good.
If you can sit tight, it'll be ready probably about 45 minutes.
I actually don't know if I'm going to be able to stick around that long.
What? Why?
Actually, I have to head back out in a few minutes, actually.
For what?
Just some things I need to take care of.
I mean, I wish you would have told me.
I actually didn't. I was thinking of it on the drive home. It's just things I need. I need to wrap up a few things before the holiday break.
Alright.
It's just that this work is piling up, and I don't want to have it hanging over my head during our time off. Besides, if I get it done now, it'll be more time we can spend together during the holiday.
You say that a lot.
This is always a busy time of the year. You know that. This year's been exceptionally busy, and I'll tell you, with everything being shut down, we've been really backed up. I'm just trying to keep on top of things, okay?
Well, when are you going to be back?
That I'm not sure about. I don't know how long this is going to take me.
I mean, what are you doing? What do you need to do?
It's just some stuff I need to wrap up, that's all.
Alright.
Listen, I'm sorry, I know it's short notice, but I've got to get this taken care of. Listen, at least, you can put some of this away for leftovers, right? I can bring it for lunch tomorrow.
I mean, I guess you'll have to.
All right. Well, listen, I'll call you when I'm leaving, but I won't. If it's too late, I won't wake you. You know, if it's just if it's too late, just go to bed without me, okay? Don't wait up.
All right.
Okay. I feel terrible lying to Anne that way. I tell myself that I do it only to spare her from the reality of the danger I'm in. I know she doesn't buy one word of it, but it makes me feel better. Maybe I'm just trying to convince myself. You see, the first time I got myself in debt to these guys, debt that I couldn't pay off right away, I agreed to do a couple of jobs for them to cover the money I owed them. Turns out they're involved in a lot more than just illegal gambling. That's just one of their little enterprises. I don't ask any questions. Of course, I have no idea who's really behind all this, who these guys work for. I doubt even they know. Like I said, I don't ask any questions. I just do the job they gave me in exchange for canceling some of my debt. What kind of job? Well, they needed a driver to transport some stuff from a pickup location to a drop-off point. What does that involve? Well, that's where it got really dicey. As I say, I didn't want to ask any questions. I didn't want to know any more about it than I absolutely had to. They gave me an address and told me to go there. Said another guy would meet me there and he'd know what it was all about. I asked them, why me? Don't you want somebody you trust, someone you've worked with before, someone with experience in this kind of work? You'd think so. Well, they told me it's better to have someone with no record. That way, if you're stopped by the police out on the road at night, they won't be able to connect you to any other activities. Of course, I still don't want to be stopped by the cops out here at night. They have plenty of reasons to be suspicious of anyone out here at this hour. I'm far from the city, about an hour or so north, up near the Delaware border. There's a lot of action between running drugs, guns, and other illicit goods. We're not far from a military base up here, so there are a lot of guns being smuggled out of the base and sold on the black market. Most of it is deaccessioned gear. You see, once it's removed from stock, it's supposed to be properly disposed of through official channels. That's where these guys come in. You see, they've got guys on the inside, guys who work in the inspection facility. They're in charge of evaluating the condition of the weapons, and anything found not to be completely up to standard is marked for disposal. But rather than sending them off to be melted down like they're supposed to, they fudge some records, sand the serial numbers off, and out they go. The disposal guys get a cut of the action too, in exchange for picking it up in their truck and delivering it to another contact who's tasked with moving it under the cover of night, using inconspicuous drivers like myself to transport it. Of course, with my car, I'm only moving small firearms, handguns, automatic rifles. These weapons don't typically end up on the street, though, being used in low-level crimes and that sort of thing. Most of them end up on ships and are out of the country within hours after being delivered, winding up in the hands of terrorists or other political insurgents overseas. How do I sleep with myself at night? But I'll tell you, driving these late nights now also brings up all sorts of paranoia. It's the combination of the dark, the lack of sleep, and the hypnotic patterns of the road, and just the nature of the work itself that brings it all on. Every time you see another car out on the road at this hour, you wonder what nefarious business they're up to. And every time you see those headlights in the rearview mirror, you wonder if it's a cop about to bust you. It's no way to live. The night takes on a life of its own. There's something about encountering anything the least bit out of the ordinary out here at this hour that sets your heart racing. I've been driving along and seen people walking on the shoulder of the road at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And even something so mundane just makes your blood run cold when you're not expecting it. Your senses ramp up out here at night, even under normal circumstances. And when you're doing this kind of work, it just puts you in a heightened state of extreme paranoia. Anyway, what time is it? I should be at my drop-off point soon. And then I can go home. I hope I don't wake Ann up again when I come in.
Hi, Sarah. This is Jerry again. I'm just calling to see if you've made up your mind about whether you're going to be going with me tonight or not. I've got the tickets printed out and I'm ready to go. I'm still here at the office. I'll be here till 5 o'clock, but if I haven't heard from you by then, I'm leaving without you. I really hope to hear from you soon. Please call me.
waiting. These last few minutes are the longest. They feel longer to me than this whole day has felt so far. Any minute now, they'll be here to collect on my debt. At least I'll wipe the slate clean with these guys. But will this be the last I see of them? Will this be enough for me to get out of this game? Will they pull me back in? Or will I allow myself to get pulled back in? That's the thing. Will I be able to bring myself to step away? To quit once and for all? Or will the compulsion get the best of me again? And I'll be right back where I started. I'm about to get a second chance to start over. But at what cost? I'm giving up everything just to make a clean break. I can't do that again. Once I make it to Mexico, I'll have to start all over. What will I even do when I get there? How is this going to work? So I get off the plane in Baja, and then what? I walk around, hope I can find a hotel to sleep in? And what happens when I run out of money? After all, I'm only going there as a tourist. I won't have a work permit or any way to establish residency. No references or anyone to recommend me for any jobs, even if I could get one. I don't even know anyone there. What the hell am I thinking? Forget about what I'm running away from. What am I running away to? That's it. It's done. I'm exhausted. I can't run anymore. I'm done running. Away from myself, away from the problems I've created, away from the people I've hurt. I have nowhere left to run. I can't keep going like this. It's like being caught in quicksand. The more I struggle to get myself out, the deeper in I sink. It's time to come face to face with everything, to own up to what I've done, to begin to try and make things right. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's time to accept responsibility for my actions. I have no choice but to turn myself into the police, to confess to everything, and let things take their course. But that can wait till tomorrow. There's someone else I need to talk to first. Anne, it's me. I want to come home.